Hello, and welcome to my itsy bitsy little corner of YouTube that I have here with my channel. I'm part of a Marshall users group, and there have been some questions in there recently about how to sound like certain people. The age-old question: you want to sound like Slash, you want to sound like Eddie Van Halen, you want to sound like Jimi Hendrix, anything like that. How do you get there? And the context it was phrased in, because you can imagine all the replies, which I wholeheartedly agree with, like, why would you want to sound like someone else? Just sound like you. Don't spend your life pursuing sounding like Slash. Just get somewhere there and just create your own sound. Be your own player, blah, blah, blah. That is all very correct. But the specific scenario this person had was they were in a cover band and they covered a lot of styles and they were pretty proud of how they did it and what they did. So while a lot of us would say, hey, crank a Marshall up to 8 and the crowd will love you for every single song, they wanted to be a bit more perfect than that. They wanted to actually make the adjustments they had to make for each particular person they were attempting to cover. So what I'm going to do in this video is take you through the basics of sounding like anyone. Now, if you are an intermediate guitarist, advanced guitarist, what have you, turn off now before I get rude comments down below going, are you kidding? Everyone knows this. Yeah, this is stuff a lot of people know. But for people who have been fiddling with YouTube, there you go. People who have been fiddling with tube amps for the first time, may be unfamiliar with the basics of how they work. So if you're someone that's always just pulled up a preset plugin called Slash or called The Edge or called whatever, and hey presto, you sound like Slash, The Edge or whatever, then you may have no idea how to get there if you have a tube amp thrust in front of you and a selection of guitars. So this is very basic. This is for someone who's new to all this. It's going to go through power amp gain, preamp gain, guitar choice, pickup choice. If all of that sounds to you like something you knew 20 years ago, then feel free to turn off. But I'm no expert at this. I'm no amp tech. I've played guitar for a long time, but I am no amp tech. So I would love you to stick around and critique me. Tell me what I've got wrong. I know how to get a good sound, but I could be completely wrong about the insides of the amp and what was going on to get that sound. So if I'm wrong, fill me in. If there's knowledge you have that you could pass on, fill me in. I would love to see the comments section of this completely full so that I can learn and anyone else can learn. But this is the basics. So thank you. And I have my kid's Lego that he seems to insist. There's a stormtrooper back there. He likes sticking that stuff in this. I got a beanie because it's cold, even though I've got the shirt on, which is totally contradictory. But hey, let's have some fun. Okay, I'm sitting here with my 1978 Marshall Super Lead 100 watt. The reason I'm starting with this amp is back in 1978, amps were pretty basic. You didn't have a whole lot. There's no effects loop in this. There's just power amp distortion, which I'll get to what that is in a minute. There's not much to it. It's just got presence, bass, middle, treble, which is EQ, a couple of volume knobs. Now, you don't have to care too much. Your amp probably has one volume knob. I'll explain what the 2 is all about in a minute. So the first question to ask is, how important is it you get really close to the guitar sound for the particular song you're playing? What I mean is, hypothetically, if you're going to play Bon Jovi's Living on a Prayer, does it matter if you're using a Les Paul, a Marshall, a Friedman, a Strat, when all you're going to be doing is going... I would draw the line there. I wouldn't bother going, how close can I get to John's actual sound for that chord progression? It's just a wall in the background. However, have a listen. If you're listening to something more distinct, if you're covering a John Mayer song or you're covering the Red Hot Chili Peppers, it can make a huge difference. The guitar you use, the pickup you use, that sort of thing, as to how close you get to sounding like them. Okay, first things first. And one thing I'm going to keep bringing up in this is the guitar and the pickup choice is super important. It's not all about the amp. Don't just keep dialing your amp forever. If you get Sweet Child of Mine and you play it on the bridge pickup of a Strat, you just won't get there no matter what you do to your amp. It's like either the top neck pickup on a Strat or like slash, the top pickup, the neck pickup on a Les Paul, that will be 90% of the sound. The rest of it's just getting a nice chunky amp with some overdrive, and you'll end up sounding like Sweet Child of Mine. So, first of all, this amp, it has 2 volume knobs. Ignore that. This is a unique place. Plexi amps have this, where you have a separate volume knob for the bass and a separate one for the treble. I've just set the bass to around about 4, and I'm going to leave it there. Because for the purposes of this demonstration, so you understand power amp distortion, we'll just use one of them. So, power amp distortion, this is the way it used to be, and this is why old songs you hear don't have the massive overdrive that new songs tend to have. Because a lot of artists use power drive distortion. So, power drive, that was wrong. Power amp distortion. When you listen to Hendrix, listen to Eric Clapton, listen to all that, I can't completely guarantee this because I'm not them, but it sounds to me like it's power amp distortion. And what that is you have a volume like this, and even though it says volume, the more you raise it up, the more distorted it gets. So you start off back here with not much. And by the time you flick it all the way around, like that, what you're getting is power amp distortion, which means the actual output tubes are what is driving and distorting. And so the difference between this and a solid state amp is the more you turn this up, the gruntier, the chunkier, the more rock and roll it starts to sound. Whereas a solid state reaches a point where it just starts to sound like crap, and then it just gets worse, and you want to turn it back down to some soft volume. So what you're getting here is power amp. Now, a lot of bands, you can get really close just by going with the power amp. So say I'm sitting here, I've got a Les Paul. Say I wanted to do AC/DC. I've got a Marshall and a Gibson for a start. Now, I don't have an SG. I don't have the 68 Plexi, I think it is, that Angus uses. But I'm not trying to be exactly Angus. Let's just get it close to Angus. So, forgetting about EQ and everything for the moment, let's just turn down volume to not much. It's on nothing now. So that is actually how clean one of these super leads gets. But if I wanted to play Angus, that's not really rocking your socks off, is it? Not too much to that. So let's turn the volume up a bit more. Like that. That's getting closer, around there somewhere. Now let's turn it all the way around here. The first thought is, whoa, way too much. If I want to sound like Angus, those power tubes are O-driven way too much. Angus and a lot of those players get their sound from the way they push through the strings rather than just cranking up gain. So if you get, this is what they call the edge of breakup. If you get the volume to somewhere where you can turn the volume on your guitar back a bit, it loses the gain. If you strum softly, it gets weak. But if you push through the strings, you get this raw punch, just bit of breakup. I would call that, for me, close enough for AC/DC. If I was going to someone pulled me up on stage and said, play TNT, I'd be... Now, all EQ aside, which you get to in a minute, I would say that's close enough to me for gain. I've got the volume knob on about 3 or something like that. EQ, you should already be pretty familiar with from using, well, what used to be stereo for us old buggers, stereos, but now I guess plug-in software with EQs. The EQ spectrum is everything from up to the high. It's the pitch, what they call the pitch. Bass, middle, treble is pretty easy. You turn bass up, the low frequencies are going to get louder. You turn middle up, and around about this frequency is going to get louder. You turn treble up, and around about this, like that. So you can sort of use your own mind. I don't think you're going to get a huge way towards sounding like your heroes, fiddling too much with EQ. I think guitar pickup and gain are the biggest factors. EQ, yeah, I would honestly just get that to a place where you like it. Because if you were going to play Guns N' Roses, I mean, if you went... Then you went, oh, I'll turn treble up. I'll turn it back. I'll turn middle up. I mean, what difference are you really hearing? Your ears are better than mine if you can put that against Appetite for Destruction and say, oh, one of those is better. Bass might make a difference. If you're doing something that is like... You might want the bass up a bit to get a bit more... I can't actually hear that. Maybe in the Pro Tools session you guys can hear that later, but that's what it is. EQs are pretty straightforward. I actually, most of the time, starting point is get the sound of the artist you want close enough with your gain, your pickup, your guitar choice. And then don't think about the artist, just think about what sounds good to you with the EQs. If you want it to be a bit crisper, a bit darker, or a bit boomier, then just fiddle with the 3 EQs until you get something you want. You're not going to make yourself go from 40% slash to 100% slash by turning the treble up or anything like that. It's a minor adjustment. Presence is similar, but has a bit more of an impact. Presence brings the guitar forward and gives it kind of hyped energy. That's my best description. Someone think of a better one, please. But if you turn presence all the way down, it gets a bit dull. If you turn it all the way up, it gets a bit thin. So I generally have presence on around about 6. It's a nice balance. It gives it a little bit of punch, a little bit of yay, a little bit of hype. But it kind of depends on the amp and your EQ. If you turn presence and treble all the way up, you're going to have this massive hissy high-end sound because they both kind of fall into that ballpark. So as easy as it is, by the way, to do this with a 1978 amp where all of the bits on the front of the knobs have fallen off and I can't really tell, I think I've got those roughly on center. So lesson 1 was that. Now about the pickups. Pickups are important. The bridge pickup, which is the bottom one, whether it's a Strat or a Tele or a Les Paul or whatever, unless there's some funky ass guitar out there that does it in reverse. They give you the wah, the eh. These aren't official terms, but they make it go eh. They give it that big, like, I wouldn't want to be in an AC/DC cover band playing everything on the neck pickup. I think that would sound kind of wrong. The punch, the guts, the wah sound comes from the bridge pickup. The top pickup gives a rounder, smoother, more sort of woo-woo sound. So what I mean is, sorry about these fantastic descriptions. You can hear the difference yourself between on the bridge and on the neck pickup, like that. It just has, so you hear the bridge compared to the top, that just brings a whole pile of mud in. So if you're going to do that sort of type of thing, the rock AC/DC type slash what have you thing, then go for the bridge. Other stuff isn't so easy to detect. You have to listen. So stuff like Eric Clapton, which I don't even know how to play. So you can hear the difference between that, and if I put up the top, if I played it properly, you can see how it just becomes more like the record when you flick it to the top. So it's safe to assume, even though he wouldn't have used the Les Paul, that he was using the neck pickup for that. You get the same sort of thing listening to Jimi Hendrix. You might get your... So you can hear way too much gain. If you were Hendrix, you'd be pulling it back. Now that's thick and round. So he's probably using that top pickup, once again, on a Strat. But if you're doing... like, you think that's not quite right, but gets a bit more the way there. Best example I can think of is, if you don't know, look up a song called Still Got the Blues by Gary Moore. You can hear it, the top pickup. It's... You can hear that nice rounded thing. Then in the solo in the beginning, you hear him change pickups. You hear him go like... Now see how it goes from the round, thick to this gnarly, aggro kind of sound. That's the pickup choice. So it's important. Yeah, if you want to really just have a good listen and a think about your pickup choice for that. So I think I'm going to now, rather than have you guys sit and watch me change guitars and change leads and all that sort of thing, I'm going to flick on and do a very quick little demonstration with the Strat as well, so you can get the idea by that. Then I'm going to flick to a more modern amp, which is probably more like what you might have that you're playing with now. And then we can go through preamp gain and things like that. So I hope that covers a good intro. Comments. Let's see. Thanks.